Okay, so what sort of arguments do you use to show that it's necessary?
Well, typically, whenever we're talking about what is moral, I think we're talking about we have reason to do impartially, and for reasons to exist, we have to talk about some type of experience, feel something to be there. Whenever we're talking about specifically qualia existing, when we're talking about the things that motivate us, what gives us reason to do a given action, when I take a look at what makes me want to do things and what seems to be definitional about wanting to do things, there's some experience, there's some goodness there, right? When we say something is good, we are referring to it being like there being reason to do it. And whenever we're talking about what gives us reason to do given things, it seems to always base out in qualia.
Okay, so it seems like you have some background beliefs there in terms of what reasons are. It seems like you're affirming some type of reasons internalist view, and you say that the only way in which it makes sense to even talk about moral evaluation is just something that, requires a type of experience. It's essentially your view, correct?
One more time? Sorry.
Okay, did you hear what I said, or do you want me to recap everything that I
I
said?
want you to repeat what you just said.
Okay, so I just gave a recap of your view. Just tell me if I'm incorrect or correct
I want you
in
to
my
repeat what
analysis.
you just said. Did you just say that?
So what I said was, yeah, that's what I was
Is
about
this
to
a
say.
hard thing for you
Calm
to
down.
do? Is just
Right? I
repeat
don't
what
know
you
why
just
you're trying to
said?
get
Did you
rhetorical.
forget?
Just relax, buddy. Just relax.
Because you're
Okay?
trying to be rhetorical. I just asked you to repeat what you said, and then you refused to do so.
Question that I asked you was, is it the case on your view that you have these sort of background beliefs about reasons there, and you just take some internalist view in
I
which
have background beliefs
the only
about
ways,
reasons. Yeah,
yeah,
probably.
yeah, as in
I
the
have
only
some background
ways.
beliefs about
Okay,
reasons. Yeah.
stop talking so I can tell you the
Do you want me to answer
recapitulation
the
of your
question?
view. You can answer after I'm done asking you the question, right?
Sorry, was there more to the
Typically,
question?
yeah, that's typically what people
Okay,
like
what adds
special
to the
awareness do,
question?
right? I don't know why you're talking over me, right?
Because I'm
Now,
asking you a question.
generally, I don't know why you're asking me a question in the middle of me asking you a question. That's not a good
Because
look,
you
right?
said you just
So,
answer one of my
anyways,
questions.
so
Seems
the
like you'll answer my
question that
questions
I
when I
asked
ask
you,
them.
and you're doing it again, still talking
Yeah,
over me
because you
as I'm
just
asking
answered
you a
my
question,
question.
right? So the question was very simple, right? Is it the case then, on your view, that the only sense and or the only way it makes sense even for you to talk about reasons or motivations for why we should or we shouldn't act in accordance with some system or some normative rule is something that actually requires experience? Is that the sort of view that you adopt?
Yes.
Okay, now is it the case then that on your view,
So there was no extra
what
to what you said. And there was no extra to the question.
there actually is.
When I
That's what I
answered
was
the answer, the question, it was
about to
correct.
do.
When I said
Okay,
yes, there was a correct answer to the
you have
question.
like a really really nasty tendency of cutting people off before they finish their statements, and then you make prejudgments about
You have
what
a
they say.
nasty tendency
Right?
of just
This is
monologuing
like
for
not a
ages
good
rather
thing
than
to
getting to the
do,
fucking
especially
point.
when you don't want to consider yourself autistic. Right? That's like what normal people don't
No,
do.
I'm being
Right?
mean to you because you were just an
So,
asshole to somebody
anyways,
else in a voice chat.
oh,
I'm
that's
giving you a
great.
taste of your own
Oh, okay.
medicine. This is what it
Really?
feels like. It
Oh, are
feels
you?
really
Oh,
shitty, doesn't
we
it?
got Batman in the call. We got Batman. Thanks. Now,
No,
anyways,
I
right?
ain't Batman. I'm just
Oh
being
yeah,
mean to
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. But
It doesn't
look,
take somebody who's big and
Bonk is
strong to be
here.
mean to you,
Bonk
you
is
little
here.
bitch.
Bonk is here to save the city, guys. Just calm down. He's here to save the city. Okay.
Are
Now,
you gonna say
anyways,
anything back? You
is
just
it the
gonna
case
take
on
it?
your view? Is it the case on
Aw.
your view? Is it the case on your view that in order for you to be a person, you have to be the type of thing that has, some mental life or something?
In order to be a person, you have to be something that has some mental life or something. Is that what you
Yes,
just said?
yes. That's
What
the
the fuck does
question.
that mean?
You don't know what a mental life is?
No, a mental life or something, something, something. I don't know what that means. No.
I said a
Try
mental
again.
life or something is what I said. Is that
To be
unclear to you?
something of a person of a mental life or something.
Oh, that's actually not what I said. So I'll just go ahead and repeat
Okay,
it
go
since
ahead and
I don't
repeat
know
it
why you're
without saying
like,
or
I don't know why
something
you're
over
like,
and over again.
I don't know why
Because
you're
I don't
like,
know what or something means. It's really, really
okay,
unspecific,
yeah,
is my
sure,
point.
sure,
That's
sure.
wildly
I don't know why you
unspecific.
just
Yes,
like,
or something is going to be like, of course, yes.
I don't know why you just autistically
Or
tried to
something
imply
else,
to
yeah,
me.
of course.
Holy shit, dude. This is actually going to be so insufferable. Okay. I don't know
You were just
why.
insufferable as fuck in a voice chat with somebody else. I don't know why you don't like it when it
Oh,
happens to
yeah,
you.
yeah. Batman comes out again. I forgot you're Batman. Right. Now,
No, you're
anyways,
just a
right.
bitch. You're somebody who throws shit and can't take
Oh
it.
my God, I'm a bitch. Oh my God. Yeah, that was really
Yeah,
rhetorical,
that's
man.
right.
Really.
Repeat it back to me. Call yourself a
Plus
bitch
10,
for me. That's right.
plus 10 rhetorical points for you there. Good job. Now, anyways, right? Is it the case on your view that what it means to be a person is just something that has a mental life? Yes or no? Which one is it?
That has a mental life? What does that mean?
Oh, okay, so the answer to my question previously would have been no, you don't know what the fuck a mental life is, right? Now,
I
generally,
don't know what
whenever
that
we're
means, is
talking
why
about a
I
mental life,
asked,
what we're
Hey, yo,
talking
dumbass.
about
time.
is a type of subjea or a conglomeration of
Type of
experiences
subgia or some
or something.
conglomeration.
Sorry. Usually
That's
we're
right. You
talking
should be
about like
sorry.
a conglomeration or a collection of experiences or something alike to experiences. Is that the sort of view that you take? Yes or no?
No. Or something alike to experiences? No.
Okay, so then what does it mean to be a person on your view? Just go ahead and give me the necessary and sufficient conditions for what it means to be a person.
I'm a reductionist on persons.
You're a reductionist on persons,
Yes.
meaning,
Yeah, meaning I don't think persons exist over time. I think that whenever we talk about persons, we have a bunch of inclusive and exclusive conditions which seem to contradict each other.
okay, so you think, all theories of personal identity are systematically false? Is that what you think?
Yeah, most of them are. Well, not all theories of personal identity, because obviously, like things like reductionism on personal identity is a theory of personal identity.
Okay, but you think most theories of personal identity are false?
Yes, as anybody who has any view on personal identity does.
Okay, and so you don't actually think there's something that connects, let's just say, for lack of a better term, the person that you are today and the person that you were, let's just say, 5 years ago.
It's a social fiction.
Okay, so what's the argument that, this sort of or at least most theories of personal identity are actually false?
Well, now your personal identity theory. What's your personal identity theory? Give me
Sorry,
one.
the question was, what's the
Yeah,
argument?
for each one, there's an argument.
Sorry,
Each one, there's an
what
argument.
was-
All of them entail a contradiction. That's the argument in favor of that.
Wait,
But I can't
all
give an
of
argument
them?
against all theories of
What
personal
the
identity.
fuck?
No, I can't. They're all individual and specific personal identity theories.
Okay, so you're saying that your answer is going to be just indexical, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's going to be indexed to the given identity theory that you're talking about, of course.
Okay.
But, it's hard to give an argument against every other view of
just
any given thing, right? There's
Yeah,
a bunch
sure,
of
that's
theories for
fine.
something. You're not going to be able to give an argument against all of those. It's very, very obvious why I wouldn't be able to do that.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. I guess what's your objections to, like, let's just say somebody adopts like an animalist theory of personal identity. Do you have any particular objections to that view?
Yeah, an analyst theory of personal identity. Yeah, whenever you're trying to take in, for example, like a given organism or whatnot, right? You take an organism over a given period of time. All of their cells tend to swap out. Whenever we're trying to base in the aseity of any given one of those atoms, they all base out in the same kind of way. We have the same problems with aseity.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last portion of what you said. You have to repeat
Yeah,
yourself.
so any way that you base out something being the same animal over time is going to have the same problem with aseity. That just being that if for some reason somebody had like all of their items swapped out or something like that, like every 7 years, that's not actually going to break somebody's personal identity. You'd say that they still are the same person. And so given the organisms aren't going to be like the same thing over time, when you base out an organism, you're kind of begging the question of what it means to be the same organism over time. There's no real justification
So
for that.
you're trying to say that the animalist theory is it's circular. That's the sort of objection that you're raising.
It's the objection that I just raised, yeah.
Okay, and it's circular in virtue of what exactly?
In virtue of the fact that you are trying to base it out in something being the same animal over time. And the same animal over time is all the same problems that I just mentioned. Right? What it makes it the same animal over time.
Okay, so you're saying that it's begging the question because
Can you answer the question of that? What makes the same animal over time?
Are you asking
What makes
me
you the same animal over time?
Are you
Yeah.
asking me? Sorry, just calm down. Are you asking me if I think that?
I'm very calm right now. I just asked you a single question.
Yeah, I know. When I say calm down, that means stop.
Trying to
talking
seem
over me, right?
nonchalant
That's
doesn't
what that
make it seem
means.
like you're not avoiding the question.
Well, I don't know why you said that as you try to be nonchalant just now, right? But anyways,
Because I asked
are
the
you
question, I'm
asking
not trying to
me-
avoid
sorry,
one.
Sorry, there's a very wonderful concept called clarifying questions, right? I don't know if you've heard of it or maybe you
Which
just
question do you need
fucking
clarified?
right? So the clarifying question here is: are you asking me that if I think, or excuse me, what I think constitutes a person on the
What
animal
question do you
species?
need clarified?
That was what
Real
I
quick?
just asked you right before you interrupted me. Right?
Yeah,
You
which
were
question?
interrupting me. Yeah. So the
Which question that I
clarifying
asked do you need
question, the
clarified? Yeah.
clarifying question that I'm asking you right now is with respect to the last question that you asked me previously, right? So now the
Yeah,
clarifying
what
question.
was it? Show me you remember it. What was it?
Sorry, what? You're asking me like what was
Sorry,
the last
what?
question that you
Yeah,
asked
what was
me?
the last question I asked? Show me you remember it.
Why would that be relevant?
Because you're not trying to get clarity on it. You're not even trying to answer the question. You don't fucking remember it. If you were trying to get clarity on the question, you would know which question you're confused on.
Do you think that it's like a rhetorical point for you to demonstrate that? If I'm asking you a
Yes,
clarifying
obviously it
question
is. If you're not paying
about the
attention to the
last point?
conversation enough to even listen to the question, so you're trying to
nice.
avoid it.
I'm really glad that you think that was
You're
a rhetorical
obviously trying to
point, right?
avoid the question. If
So
you weren't trying to avoid the question and actually get clarity
nice,
on it, you would remember which
nice,
question you're trying to get clarity on.
Totally. Right. So the question here is very
Yes,
simple,
trivially.
right? The clarifying
Which question are you trying to get clarity on? Do you
clarifying
remember it yet?
question- The clarifying question is this, right? Are you asking me if I think that on an analyst thesis about identity, that are you asking?
Sorry,
me, like,
did you say the question you're trying to get clarity on yet?
you asking me what constitutes an identity on an analyst thesis? Is that what you're asking me, or are you asking me something else?
Nope, that's not the question that I asked. See, this is why you need clarity on the question.
so
you're not even
what
paying
are you
attention to the
asking me
questions
then
that you're
if you're
being
not
asked. So this
asking
is
me
what
that
happens when you try to
question?
avoid a question
You're actually
constantly.
asking me something else. What's the question that you're
Yeah, the
asking?
question I asked is what makes you the same organism over time. Do you
Oh,
remember
okay, so
that? Now you remember that I've said it?
Just to be clear, okay, so then you are asking me, you're asking me like what are the persistence conditions on an animalist view? Is essentially what you're asking me?
No. I'm asking you what makes you the same organism over time. That's a different question.
Sorry, you're asking me, just to be clear, you understand that right now.
Just to be clear, you're not answering my question. You're just yapping. Just to be clear, you're still trying to avoid the question. Just to be very clear.
Just to be clear,
it's obvious to everybody else in the voice chat you're trying to avoid the question when you don't answer it. If you're not trying to avoid the question, then just answer it.
Actually convinced of your rhetorical tactics.
Okay, just answer it then.
Maybe, right? So
no, it's obvious. It's obvious to everybody else. It's a rhetorical tactic. It's called keeping you to the fucking question.
Get clarified on the question.
Give me the answer to the question. Stop avoiding it. What are you doing?
So
this is the rhetorical tactic, and it's not working. Drop it. Drop doing the rhetorical tactic. You've been called on it. Now stop doing this because you're trying to avoid the question. You're not giving me an answer to my question. I don't want to hear the yap.
Why is this guy
I want you to get to the fucking point. I only have so much time, as I said earlier.
If you expect to have a substantive debate, if you're just going to keep talking over me.
Yeah, okay. I expect to have a substantive debate. A substantive debate is answering the fucking questions you're asked.
On whether or not I can actually answer your question sufficiently is this, right? Are you asking me what I think makes me
this is the one that you were trying to ask for clarity on that you remember.
Are you asking me what I think, persists throughout time on an analyst view? Which one are you asking me?
I'm asking you what makes you the same person over time.
Oh yeah, sure. So generally, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like a little bit agnostic insofar as personal identity, but I'm perfectly.
So you're not even sure. You've got no idea.
Fine with defending like an animalist view, and which, by the way,
so you got no idea about personal identity. You're not sure. The answer is you're not sure. So this is why you were trying to avoid the question because you didn't know.
Right. Now, generally, on an analyst view, the sort of thing that counts as the type of thing that persists throughout time is just going to be the sort of functional unity of the organism, right?
The functional unity of the organism. So let me give you this example real quick.
Thing that persists throughout time. Whenever you're talking about a sort of analyst thesis, right?
I understand. No, without all the yap, I understand. The second that you finish that, okay, but the unity of the entity. Okay. So let's say we take like a teletransporter case. Let's say we take a case where listen, stop talking.
Wait, by the way, why did you shift?
Listen, stop fucking talking. I'm going to give you a case and you're going to tell me whether you think the personal identity is persistent there. What are you doing? You finally answered the question. Now you're scared of the follow-up question. You're terrified of the follow-up question. You're running like a motherfucker right now.
It doesn't sound so nice when somebody's talking over you, does it?
I'm being very mean to you right now. That's right. I'm being very mean to you.
Really?
Yes, I'm going to continue to talk over you until you allow me to ask the question, until you stop running like a motherfucker.
You've all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know you're going to continue to talk over me. You want to run away. It's very obvious to everybody else you want to run away. I've pointed it out multiple times in the conversation. You're too autistic to understand that everybody else knows you're running away right now. It's obvious that you are. I'm going to give you the teletransporter case. You can look it up if you really want to. Maybe you can then stop trying to avoid the question. You feel like you have enough time to answer it, to think about the answer that you want to have. This is terrible. What are you doing?
Everybody knows what
the fuck is wrong with you?
Anybody who understands anything about personal identity would not be surprised by these types of questions. That's the
first. Okay, go ahead and tell me the question I'm going to ask.
I don't know why you tried to be rhetorical.
Go ahead and tell me the question that I was going to ask.
Secondly, right?
Yeah, here comes the yap to avoid the fucking question. You're not doing well right now.
Even if you can call it yap.
Drop the little rhetorical strategy. Try and have a conversation with me like a normal person. This is what makes you bomb conversations.
I know you want to believe that it's yap, but that's sadly not true, right?
No, it clearly is yap because I was just about to ask you a question the same way that I asked you a question earlier, and you just continued talking to try and avoid answering it just to say you weren't sure.
The animalist thesis can't actually answer.
Right, it's very obvious what you're doing right now. It's not working.
That the animalist thesis can't answer perfectly.
I've never seen someone try and do so much rhetoric and fall so flat with it. Holy shit. I'm going to try and ask you a question. It's very obvious I'm trying to ask you a question. It's very obvious you're trying to run away from the question I'm asking.
Failed to explain those phenomenon. It's still not the case that reductionism about personal identity is actually true, right? So these questions that you're asking me here is entirely irrelevant.
What is going on? What's this podcast I've joined into? We're supposed to be debating each other. What's going on?
Now you can respond. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to respond. I'm trying to ask you a question. I wasn't listening to a damn word you said to try and avoid my question. I want you to answer the question I'm going to ask. Now, the question I was going to ask you before you interrupted me was, let's say it's the case that yap. Here comes the avoidance of the question again.
Okay,
trying to nonchalant doesn't make it look like you're not panicking right now. It looks like you're panicking like a motherfucker. You look like you had a rhetorical strategy against me, and the second you have a little bit of pushback, you crumble apart. It's brutal.
You need me to repeat the question or the statement?
I need to repeat the question. I haven't asked the question yet. The question I've been trying to ask for this entire time, this entire yap session. Listen, everybody else can just look it up. I'm going to ask in the teletransporter cases that comes from reasons and persons. Everybody else can just look it
it up, okay?
Derek
Do you
Parfait,
need
let's
me to
go.
respond? Do you need me to repeat what I
Hello,
said?
Derek
Or do you
Parfait.
actually understand?
No, I don't need you to repeat the
Any
yap
sort of
sesh you're having to
response
try and
that I
avoid
gave?
the question. It's very obvious what's happening here.
Okay, so you didn't actually hear the response that I gave you.
You're
So I'll just
right.
go
I
ahead
was
and
not trying to listen to a
or the
single
response
thing
that I
that was a
gave you, right?
response because the question
Even
wasn't
if it
asked
was
yet.
the case, hold on, just calm down, retard.
The
Calm
question
down.
wasn't asked yet. You're not
Even if
responding
it
to the
was
question the
case,
same way that you
yeah,
didn't
well,
fucking remember the
I'm about to
question
tell
you were
you
trying
why
to get
your
clarity on
question is
earlier.
entirely
Right? You
irrelevant.
don't listen to a damn question that's
I'm about
being
to tell
asked. You
you
don't
why
even know if
your
the question's been
question is
asked
entirely
yet.
irrelevant. So just go ahead and calm down, okay? Now, even if it
Why
was
are
the
you
case
telling me to calm
that
down? You're the
the
one who's been
animalist
running away
thesis,
from
or
the
you know
question.
by the way, there's several different defenses of animalism, right? But even if it was the case that the animalist thesis in all its
Listen,
forms,
I will.
even if all
I'll
forms of
listen to whatever
animalism
yap
failed.
sesh you have, and
Oh
then I won't respond to
yeah.
it. I'm just
Good
gonna
boy,
ask you the
good
question.
boy,
Is that
good
okay?
boy. Yeah, good boy, good. I like that. Just keep doing that, right? Now,
I'm
anyways,
good for following
Wait,
what
why
I
can't
just
you
said I
talk to
was
me
gonna
like
do.
that?
calm down,
What's wrong
calm
with you?
down.
Wait, why
What the
can't
fuck
you
is
answer
wrong
Yeah,
with
the
why,
you?
why,
question?
yeah, why can't you talk to
Calm
me
down.
like that?
Just calm down. Just calm down. Wait, 12, you're actually
This
like
is fucking brutal.
so
This is sad. I have like 20 minutes to debate, and you've like
the
ran time
question that
almost
you're
already.
about to
Is this
ask,
what you're trying to do? You know I
question you're
have
about
limited
to ask,
time to debate, so you're trying to run so that
the
the bell can
question that
strike and
you
you can
are
get
about
what
to
you can
ask
say.
is
Is
completely
that what's up
irrelevant,
here?
and I'm going to explain why your question is
Do I
completely
understand the
irrelevant.
strategy? Is that the
Wait, what
strategy
happened?
here?
Hey, you were supposed to be on quiet mode so I can actually give my quote unquote yap sesh, remember? Or did
Oh,
you
okay.
forget
Yeah,
what you
no,
said?
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do your
Right?
app session. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
good boy. Just like that, right? So look,
You're so weird.
I'm going to explain to you why exactly your question that you're asking me, which you keep insisting and trying to get these rhetorical tactics on how I'm not answering the question, doesn't actually work. And it's actually completely irrelevant right now, right? I'll tell you why. Now,
You
the
said the
reason why your
unity of
question,
the entity
stop
is what makes
talking,
it.
go back,
Is what
go back,
makes it.
go back on
What
quiet
makes it
mode.
the same over time.
Doggy, go back on quiet mode, relax, right? Now,
Am I
look,
right on that?
the reason why your question is completely irrelevant.
Can I just get clear on
Right?
that?
Even if it was the case that all
No.
forms of animalism
Just another question that
failed
won't be
to
asked. So
address the teletransporter cases,
throw it in the
even if
bucket.
it was the case that all forms of animalism failed to address the brain swap cases, whether or not they failed to address all of these sort of thought experiments that people give in personal identity literature, even if it was the case that animalism failed to explain all of these phenomenon, it still would not be the case that reductionism is de facto true, right? So your questions that you're going to ask me right now
Well,
about the
because it's de
animalist
facto
thesis
true. It's evidence against
and
it,
how
right?
the
It's not
animalist.
deductively true, right? Depending
Okay,
on how you
okay,
answer the question, it's just gonna be evidence
okay,
against it.
okay. So it would be evidence against
Yeah,
animalism.
so you're not
Fine.
gonna answer the
I
question
can
that I
grant.
asked, though, right? The one that I was gonna ask,
Okay.
you're
So
not gonna answer it.
now you can ask me your question. Sure, go ahead.
Oh, so you weren't gonna answer it with any of that. None of that answered the question. To be very clear,
Oh, it
that
actually
was
did.
that. None of that
No.
answered the question like you
Sorry,
said it was going to.
you understand how I just explained how any question that you're about to ask me
Listen,
about
maybe this
how
works in
well.
like anime debate servers or
Wait, hold
something. It
on.
doesn't
Why,
really
why
work
is
with
this guy
normal
like?
people.
Okay, you understand that what I just explained to you, or what I just said, was an explanation for why your questions are actually irrelevant to the
Whether
truth of your
irrelevant, you
theory,
think the question is
right?
completely irrelevant to the case
Yeah,
of
I think
personal
it's
identity?
irrelevant. Yeah, I think it's
Whether in a
irrelevant
certain
so
case
far
somebody's
as.
the same person over time
Yeah,
would be
no, I think
irrelevant
it's
to the cases of
irrelevant.
personal
I think
identity
it's
and the
irrelevant.
theories on
No, that's
which?
not what I'm
No,
saying.
that's
That's a
all that
wonderful
personal
straw
identity tries
man.
to address.
That's a wonderful straw man, but that's exactly not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying
Okay,
that it's
so you're not
irrelevant.
saying it's irrelevant to the
I'm
case of
saying that
personal
it's
identity. Is that relevant to
irrelevant.
the theories of
I'm
personal
saying that it's,
identity? To
look,
be
I don't
clear
know if
then?
you have like tracking skill. I don't know if you have like tracking issues or
I don't know
something,
if you have
but
the skill to
I'm
answer
saying
fucking
that
questions directly.
it's not. I'm saying that it's irrelevant insofar as it doesn't actually, give evidence in favor of like some reductionist view about personal identity, right?
It doesn't give evidence in favor of some
Yeah, it would not
reductionist
be
view
evidence.
of
It would
personal
not be evidence
identity.
in favor of
Yeah, it gives
reductionism, right?
evidence in favor of a bunch of different views of personal identity.
Oh,
Right,
nice.
them in
Okay, so now,
collective all give strong
right. So
evidence for one view of personal identity,
if you
right? Then
grant that this
collective, they
actually,
all give
if
evidence. It's
you
a
grant,
cumulative case of using multiple
oh,
different points of evidence. That's true. But in this given particular case, you're asking me to argue against something, not to argue for reductionism personal identity. That's what
I
you
asked
asked.
you. I don't know what. I don't know
I'm not
if you
sure if you
remember.
remember, but that's
I
what
don't
we
know.
were going down
Wait, sorry.
specifically.
I don't know if you remember the conversation, but your answer.
No, I
that
do
you
remember
gave
the
me last.
conversation. You asked me to argue
Wait,
against all of the other
calm down.
views, and then
Calm
I said I
down.
couldn't give an
Calm
argument against
down.
all of the
Calm
other
down.
views. I could
Calm
give an
down.
argument against
Calm down.
one specifically at any given
You're on a
time.
timer. You're on a timer. You got 5 more minutes, so use your time wisely. Okay?
Yeah, I know. You're trying to run the clock. You're counting it. You're
The
hoping
question that I
and
asked
praying that
you.
it goes down.
No. I think you're the
You're
one
just
that's
trying to
running the
avoid the
clock,
actual
right?
subject
That's
matter.
why
Do you have any critiques of my arguments against
this
abortion?
entire time you've been speaking over me and introducing the meta into the conversation,
No,
right?
the entire
Now,
time
look,
I've been trying to keep you
the
on a single
question,
subject matter. I've been trying to get you to answer the questions
question that
which
you're
are
about
very
to ask
relevant to
me.
the actual
Holy
subject
shit!
matter of the conversation.
I
And
like
then the
literally
meta has
stop
come through
talking.
me pointing out that you're trying to
The
avoid
question that
the
you're about
actual
to ask
subject
me
matter of the
about personal
conversation.
identity, and how
If you want to
animalism
go on a yap session, you want to talk about something else related to the topic rather than addressing what I'm saying on it.
completely irrelevant to whether or not reductionism is true about personal identity, right?
I
So
don't
would
think you
have to actually
remember.
give an
Again,
argument
you asked me
in
specifically
favor
to argue
of reductionism being true,
against
and
animalism.
that
That's what
all
we're
other
going down right
theories
now.
are
We're
actually
arguing
less
against
likely to be true,
animalism.
right? That's the sort of argument that you would actually have to give if you think that the reductionism view about personal identity is actually more likely to be true, right? So now you can respond.
I'm sorry. Do you remember what we were arguing about? Do you remember that we were specifically going against animalism?
No, this guy's actually retarded, bro. I can't do this, dude. You're actually dumb.
100%. 100%. I look
You're,
retarded
you
as
might
fuck
be
right now.
you might be
Yep,
the
you
most
got it.
retarded person I've ever seen. Right?
Yep.
Like, look,
100%.
you understand the sort
Listen,
of
there's a
answers
reason
that
these are
I'm
used
giving
in
you.
can decide
actual
about time
philosophy.
extension. Wait, hold on, wait,
In
guys.
actual
Yes.
philosophy.
Yes.
So, okay, and Noah, so I was gonna say that we can add like a time extension. Okay, how about that?
Sure, we can do a time
I
extension.
really can't.
No
My
problem.
grandmother
the whole
sleeps at
time
the
you guys
same
have been
time.
mad
That's not
around
how
it.
this works.
Yeah.
Or
So
wait,
look,
what are you
I've
saying?
only got
all of
limited
these
time to
things-
be
all
talking
I'm
over
saying-
somebody as they avoid my questions.
all I'm saying here, look.
Okay,
all I'm
so
saying
I can
is-
just get this. I can get this conversation on track, right? If you guys want that to happen.
Oh
Or
my
you guys
god,
wanna, like,
please,
do the better,
Apollo, please get the conversation on track.
Yeah, do
Holy
you guys
shit.
want to do this like rhetorical measure
Please.
game set, or
Apollo,
what?
please
What's
help
up?
me out. Please help me out,
Okay,
Apollo.
gosh. Yeah, beg more, man. I'm just playing. Anyways,
Yeah.
so who?
So real,
Who
so
was
real.
actually good? That was okay. Who was actually going first? Really? Who was asking the question first? What's the
What are we
point?
supposed to be
Really?
talking?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
maybe this is
what
what
I
we need to
asked-
do to get the
oh
conversation
my
back on
God,
track.
here he goes
Can
again.
I pitch
Here he goes
something to
again.
Apollo specifically? I'm not talking to you right now. Okay, Apollo, Apollo. So listen,
Yeah.
we were supposed to be talking about abortion. Is there anything that can we not just accept the social fiction of personal identity? This feels like an entire side tangent away from abortion.
Yeah, I think like
Maybe I'm
even if
mistaken.
personal identity is not something which exists, you can just take it to be something which is
Yeah,
a
we-
fiction and just
yeah.
go on.
And then we can just continue conversation.
Yeah. So the
Or
reason
maybe
why,
you want to say, or maybe you want to give like an inductive argument or something, like
Yeah,
murder people are generally moral. I don't know.
well, here's the
Yeah,
deal.
I'm
Apollo,
not quite
right?
sure
So
what the
what I
relevancy
asked
is.
him, what I asked him previously, Apollo, was what he takes person to mean, right? Whether or not he thinks that there are necessary and sufficient conditions for what it means to be a person, and he said that he was a reductionist about personal identity. Okay, cool. And then
We're talking about abortion, yeah.
And then I asked you what's the sort of evidence for this reductionist view about personal identity, right? And your answer was that you said your answer was going to be indexical. It was going to be based on the sort of theory that's being presented about personal identity, since you hold the view that most
Yeah,
views about
the
personal
arguments,
identity
I can't argue against all of them at once.
Right.
Yeah, and this is what to do with abortion. Again, we just
Right,
went with
right.
Apollo.
So now,
I'm not sure if
hold
you listened to what Apollo just
Yeah,
said.
so
there,
I'm gonna
but-
finish. I'm gonna finish what I was saying. And I'll tell you exactly how this has to do with abortion, right?
Can you tell me what it has to do with what Apollo said?
my point that I was making when I gave the response back to you was that even if it was the case that all forms of animalism failed to answer teletransporter cases, even if it was the case that all forms of animalism failed to answer brain transplant cases or parfait fission cases, whatever you want to call it, it would not be the case that that's evidence in favor of reductionism, right? You have to actually give a type of argument that
No,
demonstrates.
again, I've already responded to this. I've already responded to this with a composite
right?
case. Yes,
And
we've
the
already
reason why
responded to this. This is already done. Listen, we just said that. Holy shit!
Yo,
Please listen to
wait,
Apollo.
wait,
It's
guys,
Apollo's
guys,
fucking
guys,
server. Have some
hold on,
respect
hold
in
on,
you.
hold on, hold on, guys.
Holy shit! Again, we
We're
have
talking
limited time.
order-
Have respect for
we're
other
talking
people.
order.
You don't have respect for me and my
Exactly.
time. That's
Now you
fine.
can
It doesn't
respond.
fucking matter. I have very little respect for you back. But hopefully, with respect for Apollo, to like listen to what Apollo just said. Do you remember what Apollo said? That we could just continue. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna like do this, right? So let's see. I think that we can okay, so here's one. You guys can take 2 turns on the personal identity point, and if you guys don't progress on this point, nor is it established to have a relevant connection to the
We've
primary
already
debate.
run 10 minutes past the time I even have to be doing this, to be honest.
Yeah, but the
with you.
majority of the time, okay, so how about like 1 turn?
Yeah, I don't get. Again, the majority of the time can be spent on whatever. That's why I'm saying we should just get back to the abortion case. Right? Like again, it doesn't really matter to me. This is like a real life thing for me. It's like a real life limitation I have when debating somebody.
Okay, got you. So let's get back to the abortion thing. Let's just start over like again. You can just get things rolling.
Yeah, we can get off the fucking side tangent. So
Yeah, let's go. So
Sure.
So what's the argument they have against the pro-sentience view? What's the line? What's the deal?
Oh, I was actually more interested in your arguments for the pro-sentience view, which we didn't really finish. So
Do you have any argument against it in particular?
It depends on how the pro-sentience view is laid out. So you can go ahead and lay
Okay,
it
so
out.
it's contingent on how the pro-sentience view is laid out. Okay, so you know what my pro-sentience view is, right?
Yes. So I think, and
Okay,
correct me
so
if I'm
based
wrong.
on that view, what's
Wait,
your
sorry,
argument against it? Yeah.
I wasn't done, right? So if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but your view says something like, generally we think that, the types of things that we ascribe moral value to are just the types of things that have either a capacity or that they are experiencing,
Not
correct?
like no, not the things that we generally ascribe moral value to. I'm saying that very specifically, the thing that gives us reason to do something is the good quality, the motivating quality. These are definitionally like the same. These are
Okay,
reason.
okay. So you're saying that some action is good and
Yeah,
some.
it counts in favor of it if it's a good
Wait,
thought.
sorry. Okay,
Feels
look,
good.
it's not gonna work if you just keep talking over me, right? I'm
Well,
not
I'm
gonna
trying to
talk over
explain my
you.
view because that's the thing that's
I don't know
contingent on
why
what
you're
your
trying to
argument
explain
against
it.
it
Yeah,
is,
I know
and you
you're
just
trying to
seem like
explain
you
your
have some
view, but
unclarity on my
usually,
view.
like when you try to explain your view in the middle of people asking you questions, then it actually introduces confusion in the
You
conversation,
mean like
right?
what you did earlier,
So,
right?
yeah, I was doing that
Okay,
absolutely,
okay.
and
Just to make sure. Continue
the
then.
reason
Yeah.
why I was doing that was
No, I don't want
the
to hear the
reason why
reason
I
you were
was doing
doing that.
that.
I don't want to hear why it's okay when
Well,
you
I know
do
you
it.
don't
I
want to
just
hear
want to
it, but
hear
I'm still
you
gonna say it
to give me
anyways. I
the
don't really care what
question.
you want to. Yeah, I know you don't want to hear it, but I'm still gonna say it anyways. I don't really
Just
care
give
what
me
you
the
want to hear,
question,
right?
please. Again, let's not
So
waste time on this.
the question then is that are you saying that they have to have a capacity to have experiences, or are you just saying that they must currently be having experiences? Which one is it?
Oh, it's the experiences themselves. So that's what gives us. So they can have the capacity for experience in the future, and that would give you like reason to give some like moral credence to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if it's the case then that some fetus is on trajectory, let's just say, or they have some, let's just call it perfective inclination towards having sensory experiences or sensory
When you say
capacities, then
that
it would be the
inclination
case.
word, yeah,
Yeah, all I
what does that
mean
mean?
by perfective inclination, there's just the type of trajectory by which the being is moving toward or changing toward, for lack of a better word. We don't really have to get too much into the deep
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
metaphysics
there's
there,
like
right?
this that it's
So
like there is some general progression towards through like past things that have happened.
yeah,
And
that's
when we say
generally what
being, what
people
does that
mean
mean?
when I say what.
And we say being, what does that mean?
Oh, yeah. So generally, I just take being to signify some type of objects that exists. So insofar as it exists, then it has being.
Some type of object that exists.
Yeah, some type of
So
object
if
that
there are like
exists.
many
Yeah.
things that are like a part of the object, these are all things that also give like the inclination
Well,
towards,
that
correct?
depends on like your view. Wait, sorry. Repeat that last part again.
Yeah, let's say that there's like many things that go towards this one object, right? There's like many things that make up every given like any given object that you have, right? When we call something an object, we're making some statement about the world, right? This is different from other things. This, not that.
Okay, so if you're asking me like in what sense we mean when we refer to objects in the world, that might be a question about the sort of you might ask a question about the sort of identity predication that you're making there about the object, or you might ask a question about the sort of things that compose the object. I think those things are completely irrelevant to the topic of conversation right now. I don't really
Well,
think we
no,
need to
it's
get
just
too
a
much
term that you
into.
use in your argument, so it's going to be relevant,
Well,
right?
no,
It's
the reason
relevant to your
why
argument because you
that's
just
not what
used it in the
yeah,
argument.
that's not really what I'm saying. So when I say that it's irrelevant to the
So it
conversation,
wasn't what you were saying. You didn't
and
use the term being.
no.
We're
I'm
not
saying that
doing that,
what you
or
said. I'm saying that your response to what I just said is not what I
okay.
said, right? So don't try to be
My
slick.
response to what you just said is not what you said.
Yes, exactly, right. It's a
Oh,
straw
that would
man
be
of
my
what I said.
response to what you just said.
So what I said, or at least what I was trying to say before
That,
you
that,
cut
would,
me
that
off,
would be what I
right,
was saying. Yeah,
was that
I wasn't trying to repeat back to
questions
you.
about whether or not there are, I don't know, let's just say mereological composites, or that, mereological nihilism is true, whether or not objects really have an identity, whether there's a distinction between their act and potency. All of these metaphysics here are not exactly relevant to the conversation right now,
Well, no,
right?
there's certain things that I
Really,
do think are
I'm
relevant.
interested in
Like,
right now. Wait, sorry. What I'm interested in
it's
right
okay.
now.
You can be sorry all you
Sorry,
want. I just
sorry,
want to make sure. Like,
sorry,
I want to make sure
sorry.
that we know what's clear,
I didn't
because now
know.
I
I
have to
didn't
have the
know.
conversation efficiently because I don't want to be
I didn't
doing
know
the
that I was
little
done talking,
fit.
right? So,
Well,
anyways,
I
okay.
don't really care whether you're done
So
talking just yet. I want to make clear what I'm trying to get down.
what's really
I want
important
to
here
just make clear what
now,
I'm trying to
right?
get down. The
What's
part
really
that's relevant
important
to
here
me
right
here
now is your
is
view about
I'm trying
experiences.
to show you why I think it's relevant.
Whether
It's
or
okay.
not it's the case that
Like
things
you just
that
said
have
it
a
was irrelevant.
perfective
I'm trying to show you
inclination.
why I think it's
Oh,
relevant. You doing the filibuster thing's not gonna work.
sorry. Just calm down.
Listen,
Calm
we
down.
already are running my time like a motherfucker. You are like
So, anyways,
wasting all the
yeah,
time in the goddamn
the
world. Is
reason
it
why your
just like
time is being
eventually I just
run,
have to leave the voice chat? I guess like
the reason
I
why,
look like I'm owned or something. I'm
the
trying to
reason
show you why I
why
think it's
your time
relevant.
is being run right now is because you keep consistently interrupting me, right?
No,
Now,
you just said what I said was irrelevant,
what
and
is
now I'm trying to
relevant
tell you why
here?
it's relevant
What is
in my
relevant
mind.
here
And
right now
I think we'll
is whether or
like
not
not
the
go
types of
on another
things
side tangent about
is
conversation
whether
if
or
you
not
just
the
understand.
types of things.
I'm trying to
Yo,
now be
oh
cordial
my
with you and make
gosh.
sure that you understand why I think it's relevant.
Stop talking, my guy. Holy
Well,
shit.
can I just tell you why I think it's relevant real quick?
No, you can say that
No.
after I'm done talking
No.
and making my
Okay.
point.
So
Okay?
cool.
Yeah,
you
you can
go
say
on,
that.
make whatever point you've got to make, and then I'm gonna go right back. We're gonna come back
Fantastic.
in the conversation, and I'm gonna try and show you why I think that's relevant.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay.
So the reason why, or at least what I'm more interested in right now, is whether or not, on your view, the types of things that have, let's just say, the sort of perfective inclination towards sensory activities and sensory experience, are also the types of things that count as morally considerable, or if they're not, which one is it, in your view?
Yeah, so the thing that I was trying to get clear on there was that whenever we're talking about something being conceived, right, there's also these two other things, like the sperm and the egg, which are both relevant, right? They're both things that are on trajectory too, right, in some sense, right? We have to say that at some point it becomes a singular being, right? This singular being exists at this given point in time. And so that's why I think it's relevant to talk about where beings exist and what makes up a being. Right, what makes it up this individual thing, this not that.
Yeah, so
that's why it's
I mean,
relevant.
generally, like the sort of distinction that there's really a few distinctions that people want to draw between, like, let's just say a sperm and let's say like a fertilized egg, for example, right? They might just say that there's a trait that's true of, let's just say, a zygote that isn't true of a sperm, that being of personal identity. It might be the case that there's a distinguishing sort of potency in both genes. When you say that the sperm is on trajectory,
so
it's very
one more
important
time.
to wait. Sorry,
One more time.
sorry, I'm not
I
done.
just want you
right?
to repeat what you said. I just want you to
Wait,
repeat what you said because my
want me to
headphones cut
repeat?
out.
You want
Yeah,
me to
I've got like
repeat
I got a shoddy headphone cord. It just like cuts you out for a little bit.
Oh, you have
I'm
like
sorry.
garbage headphones that your grandma got you?
No,
Okay.
it's a shoddy headphone cord. I actually bought it
gotcha.
myself, and
Yeah,
it's going
No,
out because I just
totally.
I haven't replaced it in a while.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Yeah.
dog, I don't know why this is just not productive to the conversation.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Yeah.
The entire thing you're doing here is completely
So
unproductive to the conversation.
I can repeat what I said for you. Totally. So what I said was
Yes,
there's
that's
really
why I asked.
three
Yeah, thank you.
types.
Good boy.
There's really like three types. I don't know why you're trying to use my rhetoric now. That's like really
No,
cringe.
because it's
right?
fucking weird. It's a
So,
weird thing to be
it's
doing.
weird,
I'm
but you
mocking you
said
for
it.
it.
It's
I'm
weird, but
mocking
you
you
said
for it. Yeah, it's called mocking. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, nice. So, anyways, right, the question that I was at, or excuse me, the statement that I made rather was this, right? There's a few types of distinctions that you can draw. You can draw one of personal identity. You can draw a type of distinction in which the sort of zygote is considered like a mereological composite and the sperm is not. You might draw a distinction based on a sort of substantial change that occurs at conception.
Meteorological composite. I'm not sure what that means.
You might also draw a distinction.
I'm not sure what one of your terms means. Can I get clarity on one of your terms?
Sorry, you don't know what mereological composite is?
No, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so generally, when people are talking about mereological composites, all they mean to say is that there's a sort of object in the world that's composed of parts that constitute a whole, and also they might take the view
They're
that
composed of parts that constitute one whole thing. Yeah.
yes,
and so
yes,
the
and
meteorological
usually, and
composite
also they
thing,
might
yeah.
say, and
That's
also they might
where
say something like
I'm curious,
the
yeah.
they might say that this object has like some set of actual unmanifested properties that are true of the object or something like that. But that's not really even relevant to the conversation right now.
Okay.
The conversation about meteorology. Now, the
'Cause
question, excuse me.
I'm curious about
So when you said,
then
wait,
how
let
it.
me
Well,
let me finish.
is it not relevant at
Whenever
all
you said-
to the
whenever you
subject? Because it's a term that you use, and you keep saying that these things are like irrelevant now.
No, I'm saying
when I
that
try
it's
and dig
irrelevant. I'm
deeper into
saying
any
that
of the
it's
terms that you
irrelevant.
use, now you say that they're irrelevant. Those are
Yeah.
irrelevant things. These are completely irrelevant to the subject matter. In which case, I'm not
Correct.
sure why the terms are even being used.
Well, the reason why it's irrelevant insofar as we're discussing whether or not the types of things that count as having a trajectory, let's just say, or an inclination towards these things that you care about, are also the types of things that count as morally valuable, right? So it's relevant to that point.
Whether those things
right?
are also the things that count as morally valuable. I'm sorry. One more time.
Yeah. So it's irrelevant to this point. It's irrelevant insofar as we're trying to figure out whether or not the types of objects that also have this sort of perfective inclination towards these sensory activities or sensory experiences that you care about are also morally valuable, right? Now, you mentioned something
Well,
previously that I
it
want to
somewhat,
kind of wait.
so
Let
it
me
somewhat is
address.
relevant in
let me
a
address.
couple of ways.
Let me address. Let me address.
Okay,
what
okay, you
said
can go on
previously.
to another point. You can go and shotgun off another point. Yeah, go on.
Well, no, it's not another point. It's actually completely relevant to the point that you made previously. I've been trying to make this point for a while, right?
Oh, okay. So
you
it's another
mentioned-
point. It's
you
another point, not the point you
mentioned-
just made. It's another point.
Okay, cool. You mentioned
Okay, so
earlier.
what the fuck was that then?
Nice. So you mentioned a point earlier. You said that a sperm is also on trajectory to achieve these things or whatever. You might take a distinction between the type of potential that the sperm has and the type of potential that the fertilized egg does, right?
Yeah,
You might take a
that's
distinction between the active
kind
and
of, I'm curious about, the active passive potential thing. That's the thing I'm curious about, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so
That's the
what
thing that I think was
exactly-
relevant. That was the thing that we thought was relevant like ages ago, right? And then we said that was irrelevant.
It's actually so. If you thought that you were talking
Yeah.
about active and passive potential, why'd you start asking me questions about meteorological composition?
Because that's also relevant. There are other things which are also relevant.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So, do you want to talk about
These things are relevant
so I guess
together.
we can talk about we can
That
talk
something has
about the
active or
active.
passive potential in virtue of its meteorological composition, based on how you define these things.
Not necessarily. I don't think that things
Yeah, these
have.
are traits of a given thing.
Okay, so you're saying that a sort of active potential is something that's true of a meteorological composite?
Yeah, it seems like that would be the case. No.
Yeah,
And
sure. I
using
don't
those as a different
disagree.
term. Okay,
Sure, I
so
don't
yeah, those
disagree
are
with
relevant.
that.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just making sure I was right on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the type of distinction that you can draw. So to say that the sperm is on trajectory, by the way, to achieve these things would just be false, because it is
Well,
not the
sometimes
case
they are on
that
trajectory,
sperm.
right?
Okay, so then what do you mean when
That
you
is
say
the
they're
case
on
sometimes.
trajectory?
Well, would you not say?
Well, what do you mean when you say that it's the case that they're on trajectory to achieve these things in the future?
In virtue of the same way that like a fertilized egg might be a sperm that is about to fertilize an egg would be on trajectory.
Okay, so the claim wasn't
So I like
they're
just
on
come in your
trajectory.
mom's pussy, right? And it's like she's incredibly fertile, right? She's very breedable. It is on the case that that sperm is
Why
in
is you guys
trajectory
debating the
to
joke?
fertilize the egg.
Okay, so first of all, that wasn't rhetorical. But secondly, whenever you talk about
Secondly, that was not rhetorical.
That shit was kind of
yeah,
rhetorical,
so
though.
anyway, secondly,
That was
whenever you
kind of
talk about
Come on.
secondly,
on.
secondly, whenever you're talking about, let's just say, first of all, you said that sperm might be on trajectory to combine with an egg or something like this, right?
Yeah.
The claim wasn't whether or not sperm is on
Well, no.
trajectory. Sorry. The claim wasn't whether or not sperm is on trajectory to combine with an egg. The claim was whether or not sperm is on trajectory to have these sort of experiences or these sensory
Well, yeah, if
activities.
it's on trajectory to
right?
fertilize an egg, and then that egg
Obviously
would
the
be on
case
trajectory
that in the
to like
sperm
that. Yeah,
phase,
these are both
obviously,
on trajectory to each other, right?
Sorry. It's obviously the case that in the sperm
Well, I
phase,
don't know if
that
what I'm
the sort
doing
of
is like
potential
super
there, the sort of potential there that you're
conversationally
talking about,
irrelevant or something
it's not
like
really
that. I
an
don't know what the
active type of
sorry has
potential,
to do
right?
with what I just
In the
said.
sense that it doesn't really have a capacity to change intrinsically or in virtue of itself.
Well, it does have a
Rather,
capacity to
it has a
change.
capacity to change only when some other action or some other thing is impeded on it, right? That's signified
Some other
by
action or some
passive
other thing is
potential,
impeded
right?
on it is when it has the potential to
Whenever you
change,
talk
which is
about
also
sort of
true of a
active
fertilized egg,
potential
which is
of the
also
fetus,
true of a zygote.
whenever you talk about the the active
No, it's
potential
also
of
true
fetus,
of a fetus. That would
wait,
also be
what,
true of a fetus in virtue of the fact that the
what's
mother has to
true?
continue eating food, right? They has to continue giving nutrients to it. Doesn't like
You,
grow out of nothing.
wait. Do you think this is like okay? Do you think that the mother do you think the mother gives the fetus its powers or capacities? Let's just say
Gives it its nutrients to be on trajectory to?
wait,
Yes.
sorry.
If you stop doing it, it would
The
cease to
question
have
was
that
whether or
trajectory.
not
Yes.
the
In the
question
same
wasn't
way that
whether or
if I
not the
stopped doing,
question was not
listen,
whether or
what
not
the fuck are you doing?
the
Just let
mother
me answer the question, and
gives
then you
the
can talk to me
child. I
about
don't know
how
why
it's
you're trying to
irrelevant.
play victim
Okay?
right now, right? I don't know why you're trying to play victim.
I'm
That's
not trying to play
strange.
victim. I'm trying to ask you what the
The
fuck you're
question
doing. I'm
wasn't
trying to answer your question.
whether or not the mother gives the fetus nutrients. The question was whether or not the
That's
fetus
not
gives,
what
or
I was
excuse me, the
saying. I
mother
didn't say yes, the
gives the
mother gives it
fetus
nutrients. That was
the
not a
sort of
question I thought
powers
you
that it
asked.
has
No shit.
intrinsically,
I was trying to answer a
such that
different question.
it has a perfective inclination towards certain types of powers or activities that it can engage in, or that it can change in a certain type of way, right?
It's on a trajectory to do that, right? It's on a trajectory to have this qualia. No?
That wasn't. Wait, do you understand the question that I just asked you, or do you need me to repeat it?
The question you just asked me? No, I need you to repeat it.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna repeat it again. Hopefully, this time you don't interrupt me. Right? The question that I asked you was this: do you think that it is the case that the mother gives the fetus its power to become sentient in the future?
Yes. Trivially.
Okay,
Of course
so
it does,
how
right?
do
If the
mothers?
mother
How do
stops, if
mothers?
the mother stops consuming food, if the mother was not there or something like that, yeah, I would not have the ability to become sentient in the future. Trivially, it is the case.
Wait, sorry. Just to be clear, you understand there's a distinction between the mother giving the fetus nutrients to survive. Let's just say the same way that a mother needs nutrients for the newborn to survive. There's a distinction between that and the sort of powers that the fetus has or the newborn has.
What do you mean by
Insofar
powers
as
the fetus has?
yeah, so by powers, I'm just talking about
Define
certain
power,
types
yeah.
of by powers. I'm just talking about certain types of change that could occur in the
Yeah,
object
certain
or
types of
in the
change
thing,
that could
right?
occur.
So when I say
So the
yes,
sperm
certain
has
types
that
of
power, right?
change-
That sperm has the ability to have that change to occur.
Oh no,
It has
so
that power in the same way.
so
Yeah.
sperm doesn't have a potential, like I said previously, in the same way that
Why
a
not?
fertilized egg does. And the
Why
reason
not?
why this is the case is because there's a clear distinction between the sort of active potential of, let's just say, a fertilized egg, and there's a distinction between that and the sort of
Well, you
passive
said that the
potential.
distinction was being on the trajectory
And
of.
there's a passive potential.
The
in
distinction was
sperm,
being on the
right?
trajectory of.
Reason why
Correct?
there's a passive potential.
Just
in
stop
sperm
doing. You had so much time to
because
talk. I've said so little in the last
sperm
I
does
don't know,
not
5
have an
minutes or something
intrinsic
like that.
power
Can you just allow me
to
to
be able
press you
to
on this one
change
point, or are you too scared to
into
get pressed on this one
sentient,
point that you want to
right?
have the entire floor for the
Whereas
rest of the
the
time?
fertilized egg actually does have the power.
Okay, so I know the answer to that question. You just
into
want
a
to have the
sentient being,
floor.
right?
Okay, so
Whenever
I'm going
you
to
can
say
respond.
the thing that I was going to say to the rest of the room. Right, I'll just go on about it, and then again, I do have to go because I have my grandmother who is in the room next to me. No, it is the case that it is on trajectory in the same way that the sperm that I came into your mom's pussy is on trajectory to have this given experience in the future, right? These are potential things that could happen of this given entity. It has the power to do this thing.
Okay, so again, I don't know if you're like really confused on the distinction between active and passive potential, or if you're just like intentionally inept. And also, by the way, if my
Give me the
mother ever
distinction
saw
between
somebody
active and
like
passive
you,
potential.
if my mother ever saw somebody like you on the street, she would actually laugh at you, right? So that's really
Well, I
embarrassing.
mean, apparently you think I'm a retard, and I can only guess you're born of a retard. Right, so your dad's got to be at least a little similar to me, right?
Secondly, right? You keep making this I don't want to say category error, but you keep making this equivocation, let's just call it, on the type of potential that exists in the case of the sperm.
Yeah, I'm asking you to
and
give the distinction of the potential
that exists.
Please give me
in
the
case
distinction of the
fertilized
potential.
egg, right? So I'll explain it for
Just
the
give the
last and
distinction of the
final
potential.
time. I'll explain it for the last and final time.
We're saying that it doesn't
Then,
give the
if you're
power
on
to
your way to your
the action
grandmother's
this mother
house,
is taking.
make sure you send a
right?
text to your
In the
mother.
same
tell her
way
I said
that,
hi.
in the same
when it comes
way,
to
in
your
the same,
time, right?
my grandmother, dog,
In the case
you
of the
going after my
fertilized egg,
grandmother?
I
She
said,
ain't
I
hot
said
like
on
that.
your way to your grandmother, give your
That was a
mother a
granny
call
smasher.
and tell her that I'm on my way tonight to come see her, right? Now,
Look at the
secondly,
granny
when you're
smasher.
talking
My
about
sickly
sort of
grandmother?
passive,
You want to find
you're
sickly
talking about
grandmothers?
the type of passive potential
You're
there.
fucking weird.
Passive potentials are just the
That's
types
kinda
of
weird.
things. I didn't say I was gonna fuck your grandma. I don't know why you keep saying that.
You're
Right?
on your way to kill her?
Passive
What are you gonna
potentials.
do?
I said on your
What do you
way
plan on
to
doing?
your grandmother.
She's
I
going
want you
to sleep.
call your mother and tell her that I'm on my way. That's what I said.
Oh, my
right?
grandmother to call my mother. Yeah, I don't know why
I
the
want
fuck I do
you
that. I
to
just
call
have my
your
mom's
mother,
phone number.
right?
I know my
And I want you
mom.
to
Maybe you
tell your
don't.
mother that Kay is
I
gonna
can
come
call
see
my
her
own
tonight,
mom.
right? Now, anyways, I don't know why you're trying to
What the fuck
hyper-focus
was
on
that?
this
What does that have to do with me living with my
like
grandma?
really fucking irrelevant, like rhetorical point.
Yeah,
right?
it is really irrelevant.
The
That I live
actual like
what the fuck you just
substantive
went
point
down
here
that.
is that the distinction between the active and the passive type potential there is that the active potential is something that's sort of intrinsic potentiality of the organism,
It's
right?
intrinsic
But in the case,
potentiality of the organism.
but in the
And
case
intrinsic here
of
means
the
what?
sperm, right? The sperm
And
does not have
intrinsic here
sort of
means what?
potential in the sense
And
that the
intrinsic here
sperm
means what?
would not be
And
able
intrinsic
to
here means what?
actualize or change
And
in
intrinsic
that sort
here
of
means
way
what?
such that they would actually develop some
Please,
sensory
just answer the
capacities,
question.
sensory experiences.
Please, I don't have time
Whereas
to listen to your
fertilized egg
podcast.
would
Please,
actually do that,
please,
and
for
it
the love
doesn't
of
need the
God.
mother
Again, this is
to
running really late
actualize
into my
those
night,
powers.
dog.
Right?
Dog, I've been here for like
Now
an
you can
hour.
respond.
I've been here for like an hour. Yeah, and intrinsic here means what?
What was the question?
Holy shit. Intrinsic here means what?
Oh, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
Intrinsic here means what?
Oh, nice. I like when you listen to me. That's good. Right. So
Yeah, I like when
generally,
you have the
people
ability to
are talking about
listen.
intrinsic.
Thank you.
Just calm down. Just calm down. Right. So when people are talking about intrinsic, generally, I think what people mean when they talk about intrinsic is just something that doesn't need a sort of external force to act on the type of change that occurs in the entity.
Well,
right.
you do need the external
So,
force to act. You do.
in the case
Yeah,
of
there's
in the
music
case of the
accumulating, of
fertilized
course.
egg, in the case of the fertilized egg, let's just say,
In the same way that, like, there doesn't need to be some external
sort of
force with
external
the
force that
sperm that's
occurs
in your mother's pussy,
case
right?
of
That's
the
the same way, right? There's the
why
case that it continues onwards, and there's no external force that acts on it other
what
than that of the
in
mother
the
continuing to
fuck,
survive.
bro? Look,
And
how about
I'm
this,
sorry, this is
right?
the way that you were born,
You
right?
can
This is just how these things work.
you can just have your
It's,
closing.
it's like obvious if you
because I don't think this is actually going to get anywhere. So you can just give your
if
closing.
you want to call the debate here, we totally can. Yeah, super good.
Yeah. Go ahead and give your closing, and I'll give mine. That's fine.
No, I think you've had a lot of time to talk. I think that you want to continue talking. It seems like what you want to do.
So you don't want
I
to give
want
a
to hear. I
closing?
want to hear what you have to say. Apparently,
Oh, so you don't want to give a closing? Is that right?
I don't want to give a closing at all. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. That's totally what I said. You fucking
So
retard.
okay, so if that's not what you said, then do you want to give a closing, yes or no?
Yes.
Go ahead and give your closing.
After yours.
Sorry?
I can do it after yours, right? You've been talking for a really long time. You seem to think that you
Oh,
haven't
no,
had time to get
I
things
want to
out.
give you,
If you
I
want
wanted
me
to
to
give
give
you
the
the
first closing
opportunity.
statement, I
Yeah.
can do that. But it seems
Oh
really
go ahead.
strange that you
my
now
God,
only want the
just
last
fucking
word.
Go ahead and give the closing statement. Go ahead.
Yeah, so whenever we're talking about, again, active and passive potential here, to have something act on it as well would be the same ways, like in the exact same ways that the mother's going to have to act on the sperm and the egg to be fertilized and continue living, right? The mother ceases to live, they're not going to have the potential anymore. In that same way, in the same way they have to continue to eat, they need to continue to survive. There is the potential there with the sperm that has already been within the mother. Right? The sperm's already been within the mother, as in the actions have already happened. Right? In that same way, where there's a continuation of the egg to be fertilized and to grow into a sentient living being, there's the ability for a fertilized egg to grow and continue on to be a sentient living being. But then needs to act on it in the same way. And the mother has to continue to eat, they have to continue to survive, whatnot. That was like the entire point that I was trying to get out, I guess. I don't have much more for a closing statement. If you want to go on and rattle off whatever you want to rattle off, that's all good for me. And then I think we're chill.
So finally, the point that he was making about he's trying to say that the sort of active, or excuse me, the passive potential can be applied in the case of the fetus, in virtue of the fact that the fetus also needs the mother's resources, which would be an external, let's just say, impediment on the fetus, such that the fetus can actually achieve these sorts of, it can change into a certain type of entity, right? Now, this is just confusion on the distinction between active and passive potential, right? It is not the case that the ability for the fetus to change into a into a sentient being, or into a being that has the respective powers such as sensory capacities or sensory abilities. It is not the case that the mother is the thing that's initiating, or excuse me, rather impeding on that type of change. It is the case that the mother, is providing this fetus like resources, much like how mothers provide newborn babies resources. But it would be very nonsensical to say that a mother feeding her newborn child is giving the newborn child powers to be able to have experiences, right? That's just a very, very nonsensical thing to say. So it is not true of the fetus that the sort of potential that it has in an active sense is actually the type of thing that requires the mother's external resources, but it does require the mother's external resources insofar as its life is being maintained in gestation, right? That's all I have to say.
By the way, Bunk and Kay, now that the debate is finished,